hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. The claws in my heart, I can't let go, I'm breaking apart, controlling me, controlling me.
Wow. My board's getting all goofy. I got to reboot my computer tonight for sure. It's getting a little squirrely up here in the studio, but hope you guys are doing great. And to let you know, I'm not alone. I got my good friend and co-host, Mr. Oh, no, wait, never mind. I'm alone. Yeah, I can't play around with the buttons tonight. It's getting goofy, but thought that was funny. Anyway, I hope you guys are all ready because, well, it's time for bed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories From Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I hope you're having a great night. I'm having a good night. It's been busy, a lot of things going on, but in a good way. And I got a lot more things to get done tonight before. But remember, Don will be hosting the show for the next 2 nights. He'll be driving the ship, manning the fort, and piloting the craft. So I hope you guys will be here and help him out. And I know he's got some good shows planned. So it'll be exciting to see what he can do in the next couple nights. It'll be all on him. It'll be an all 100% Longbeard excursion presented in full beard vision. So I'm excited for it. I think it'll be great, but good to see you guys, and thank you all for coming in. All of you who have come in, I see the numbers are growing and growing here. As I'm sitting here, I actually got a comment today on an older video, and it's funny because a lot of the older videos, this one wasn't very, very old, but it was still back there in the day, and I still get comments of people that are, checking it out. Of course, our format has changed a lot through the ages of doing the show. Don and I used to talk a lot more at the lead into the show, and we did get a lot of complaints like, you guys are talking an awful lot. It's supposed to be a paranormal show, and it's like, you know what, you're right. But I still get comments from people like, like tonight is like, I'm hearing that ooh ooh song for a long time, and then you guys just talks, this person's just talking so much and not really saying anything about the paranormal. We'll see you later. I'm unsubscribed. And, I don't know. I just like talking to you guys, and sharing with my audience and not making it like a pre-recorded show as much as I can. But apparently that some people's time is just far too valuable to be sitting around listening to me. So, and maybe I'm not as interesting as I think I am either. That's always a possibility. But very interesting, and it did make me chuckle because it really was an older show. Not really, really old. It's like probably a medium age show because we got some that are really, really old on our playlist as well. And they're kind of cool to check out and to see what's going on and see how far we've come. Well, thank you, Jim, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that support. I like it too. Yeah, well, I did. I just laugh out loud and said, "Ooh, I'm gonna miss you." But I don't really shed money tears for people being dicks, I mean, if people have a valid opinion, that's fine. It's cool. But don't pretend every show should be exactly what you like, only you like, and, screw everybody else. So whatever. It's my show, and I'll talk if I want to. And people always have that right to just change to a different video. It doesn't necessarily have to be one size fit all. So anyway, I got some stories coming up for you. Little Rock's down the road. Elaine says Little Rock's down the road. She must live near Little Rock. I don't know what that means. Under pressure. I'm just looking at the chat. Sorry. I wish I could really pay attention to what you guys talk about because sometimes doing these shows alone, it feels like I am just talking into a microphone, and I really miss seeing what you guys say. But taking a look at who's here. Aussie Tiger Rockstar Fams. Oh, Rockstar Fams. You changed the name, right? Or is that the way it's always been? I'm sorry if I've got it wrong. Bigfoot in Germany's here. Duck Sauce. Elaine Clifford. Gemini Moon. Joe Kukowski. Lisa Heilman's here. Louis Ta. Orange County Girl. Good to see you all. Renee is here. Sphinx Silinx is here. And Truth Hip Hop Consciousness. And Truth sent in a really detailed account of their experience. He, of course, called in the other night and shared a version of it, but I've got a much more robust version that he and his brother sent in to the show, and we'll probably be reading that a week from tomorrow. Since I'm not going to be here, I'll read it on not this Friday, but the following Friday. So that's what I'm planning on doing, listener emails. So if any of you out there who have another story of your own that you'd like to share and would like to hear read on the show, I'm planning on doing listener emails a week from Friday. So send them in. I'd love to cover your experiences. And honest to God, they don't have to be really, really over the top profound. If your toast moves on the plate by itself, cool. I had a really cool experience tonight, actually. Now get this. True story, honest to God, no embellishment. I was sitting here and in the studio, and I was corresponding with a person who's really going through a pretty intense level of different phenomena. And they were talking to me. They were showing pictures. These people have been through horse mutilation. They've been through constant paranormal activity. They've apparently got what appears to be Bigfoot in the area. I mean, it's just, and to any of you guys listening, it sounds like, oh yeah, isn't that just convenient? But honest to God, I really believe this person is being sincere. And I was talking to this person about what they're experiencing. And as this person was explaining some of the things going on, I felt a cold chill behind me, like a seriously cold chill. All of a sudden, my computer chirps out of nowhere, and my caps lock is stuck, but the caps lock light is not lit up on my keyboard. I can't type in anything but caps. Even if I hit shift or whatever, it doesn't do anything. I have to hit the caps lock and turn it on in order to make small font. And then all of a sudden, boom, it just on its own quit, and that chill went away. But it was just like perfect timing. This cold chill behind me, and boom, my computer beeps, and all of a sudden I'm typing in caps. Is it for sure paranormal? No, but it seems really bizarre to have all of those things line up at the exact same time when I'm having this really intense discussion with somebody who's telling me everything that they're dealing with. And pretty intense event. I've set her up with a few people that can hopefully help her with some of her situations. And but yeah, I mean, it was really cool experience. It didn't freak me out. It's just like, well, there we go, back in the portal. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because you guys share your stories. I like to share mine when they come up. Not all of them are newsworthy, but this one I thought was neat because it's something I've never experienced before. So anyway, and again, spirits have no trouble messing with electronics. It seems to be very, very easy for them to do that, and it could be by virtue of just existing as an energetic being. It's not hard for them to manipulate electronics. It might be like the very easiest thing they can do. Now, I don't know if that was something reaching out from her end or if it was something here responding to, the conversation. I don't know. I have no idea. I'll leave that to people like Deb or Sean or Diane to sort out. But yeah, very cool experience. Very cool. Creepy Creeperton. That's funny. What does that remind me of? Creepy Creeperton. Oh, I don't know. That reminds me of something I saw a long time ago. Anyway, let's get to some stories here, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all ready. I hope you're tucked in. I hope you're relaxed. Got the lights turned down. And my soothing voice will deliver to you some, hopefully, entertaining tales. We'll see, though. First one tonight is coming from Texas. And it says, during the summer of 2004, I was spending the night at my friend's house. And he was in the shower, so his brother and I were watching television, and he turned the volume down and said, "Did you hear that?" And I started to listen, and I heard a slight laugh coming from the wall to our left. Now, on the other side of this wall is a garage, and we were the only ones home. About a month later, it was about 2 a.m. in the morning, and I decided to go to bed, and I was walking toward the guest bedroom, and I felt a chill run up my spine. I get to the door, climb into bed, and quickly fall asleep. I woke up sweating and breathing hard, and all of a sudden I hear a thump come from the bathroom connected to the room. I glance over, and I see two red eyes in the darkness that seem to be glaring at me. I hightailed it out of that room and fell asleep on the couch. Supposedly, before I had met my friend, they had a history with a demon that followed them wherever they went. They had moved from city to city, and this entity followed them. My friend's mom would randomly wake up with scratches on her back, and she would see a shadow at the corner of her eye every once in a while. And then one day, she had enough, and she spread holy water all over the house. A few months after that, they moved to a house in Fort Worth, and I decided to go spend the night for a week, and there was no sort of activity going on anymore. They had apparently gotten rid of the ghost. Yeah, I don't know that was an actual demon, but it does sound like something dark. There are other dark entities that aren't necessarily demonic. I don't think you can get rid of a demon just by sprinkling holy water. Maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of scale as far as how hard they are to get rid of, but who knows? Creepy story, though. I hope that person continued to be okay. That's horrible. I don't know what I'd do if I woke up and saw red eyes glaring at me. I don't know. I guess there's no way to know unless it happens, and by all means, I'm certainly not encouraging it to happen. I don't usually get freaked out by the paranormal, but then again, I don't ever recall seeing red eyes glowing and glaring at me, and that might change that a whole lot. I don't know. Okay, Washington is next, ladies and gentlemen. It says, my brother and I were renting an old house in Longview, Washington. This house was apparently built back in the 1920s, and my room was in the basement. Well, it basically was the basement. All the lights and electrical plug-ins were on the same circuit, controlled from upstairs, and rather than going upstairs to turn the lights out when going to bed, then stumbling down the stairs afterwards, I would just unscrew the light bulb above my bed, and that way I could leave my computer on and still have an alarm clock. One night I unscrewed the light bulb just like every other night. I went to bed quickly and fell asleep, and at about 5 a.m., I awoke to a flashing light in my room. I opened my eyes and saw the light bulb, which I had unscrewed, was turning on and off very fast. I figured someone must be playing with the light switch upstairs, but I looked at my computer and it was on. If someone had been playing with the switch, the computer would have been affected as well. I laid in bed for several minutes watching the light flick on and off. I didn't feel afraid at all. In fact, The only reason I hadn't gotten up was I was hoping it would stop without me having to get up. I guess I'm lazy. Finally, after a period of about 4 or 5 minutes, I got out of bed, and as soon as I was standing, the light stopped turning off and on and just went fully on. The light bulb had completely screwed itself back in. I tried to pass it off as electrical problems, until I remembered that my brother's old roommate had told me before I moved in. He said that one night he woke up and saw a shadowy figure standing over him. At this point, I was too awake to sleep anymore, so I got up and went upstairs and watched a movie. Then my brother got up and I told him about the light show, and he told me that everyone that lived down in the basement, except for him, had an experience of some sort. Some just had gut feelings, and others had, like me, had seen something unexplainable. I tried to excuse me. Sorry, I gotta take a drink. There we go. I talked to several friends about it and ended up talking to my girlfriend's mom, of all people, about it. And I was in the middle of my story when her friend came over, who was supposedly psychic. I had met this woman once before and barely knew her name, and she knew very little of me too. And she asked what my girlfriend's mom and I were talking about. And my girlfriend's mom told her I had a light show, and she stared at me for several seconds and got visibly upset. She said somewhat frantically, "It's trying to tell you that you're going to have a bad accident." She looked at my girlfriend and said, "Does he drive fast?" To which my girlfriend replied, "Yeah, kind of." She got more upset and said, "You need to slow down. It's trying to tell you you're going to have a bad accident." She paused for a second while staring at me some more and then said, "But you won't get hurt. Someone else will." I didn't know what to believe. I wanted to think the woman was a quack, but then how did she know I drive fast? Even my girlfriend's mom didn't know my driving habits. I thought about this for some time and decided to take things a little more carefully for a while. A couple of weeks later, sorry, I don't mean to cough, but that's bad hosting, I guess. A couple of weeks later, a spring pack came apart in the rear axle of my lifted Jeep Wrangler, and the center pin had snapped, and some of the leaf springs actually came out on the road. Just a tiny piece in the center pin kept the axle from flipping around or causing an accident, and if I hadn't been taking things easy, bad things could certainly have happened. Ever since I moved into this place, I would hear footsteps upstairs when no one else was home. This happened to be a duplex, so I would just pass it off as being the neighbors somehow, but after this experience, I paid more attention to the footsteps and determined that they don't come from the neighbor's side of the house. They come from directly above me. All the other people that had lived there had heard these very same footsteps. Well, good. I guess if you're, that's a good thing to get a warning, I guess. And that's the other part, ladies and gentlemen, is that for some reason the spirits have no trouble seeing what's coming. You know, they're not bound to the same time-space rules we are or whatever. I don't know. But they seem to be absolutely cognizant of things that are coming. And, not that those things can't be changed. Obviously, it was being warned to slow down or to be more careful. He was more careful, and therefore his leaf spring and axle didn't fall apart and crash him and cause, havoc for other people. So it's a good thing. Very good thing. It's just, what does the flashing light have to do with, a warning? And I guess, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. Is the flashing light like a warning light? I don't know. So if you see a really flashy light, maybe that's a warning. Maybe that's how they give us warnings. I don't know. These are the things that I like to think about in terms of these stories, because every story holds little grains of wisdom for us all, I think. And perhaps if you see flashing lights in a ghostly encounter, it's a warning. Just an idea, just thought. I don't know. We'll see if that comes up more as time goes on. I don't recall other stories directly that might have had that, but maybe. Okay, the next one's coming from Pennsylvania. This one has to do with sleep paralysis. I think of all of the phenomena, I think this is my least favorite, sleep paralysis. And I did go through a period of dealing with sleep paralysis for quite a long time. And it was pretty bizarre, pretty horrible as well, because it's such a helpless feeling to not be able to move, to just be stuck in that place that you can't, I imagine it would be kind of like what being paralyzed would feel like. And I think if that's the case, of course it's called sleep paralysis, but I mean, could you imagine that was your experience, that you got into a terrible accident and you couldn't move your body, and it would be like being a hostage in your own body. And I think that would drive me nuts. One time when I had a knee surgery, I opted for a nerve block to be done on my leg. And by the time the nerve finally woke up, which was several days later, I was about beside myself. I hated it. I just hated it. I would so much rather have felt the pain than to not feel my own leg. That to me was absolutely excruciating. And it was a mental kind of agony, because it was there, but it wasn't. And I couldn't cope with it. It really screwed me up. So I will never, if I ever need another surgery, I'll never go for a block like that again. But, my hat's off to people who are able to go through that and to cope and to change their life and learn to deal with that. I don't know that I could. I honestly don't. That's just me being absolutely honest, because even just my leg drove me crazy. Just absolutely batty. All right, so Pennsylvania. First, I'd like to start out with a simple background about the town that I currently live in. I live in a really small town in Pennsylvania called Skippack. Skippack. It's a known fact that George Washington and his troops marched down the streets of this town on their way to Valley Forge. Along the way, many soldiers died. In a barn only a few miles from the house is where George Washington stayed a night during his long journey. There are tons of reported hauntings in this area, and I've also heard that when the soldiers would die, they would simply bury them in unmarked graves. My story begins with a common phenomenon called sleep paralysis. Basically, I want to explain to you why I know this is not a dream. It will start when I'm really tired, and usually when I first fall asleep. I personally believe that being really tired means that my mind is not thinking of anything when I fall asleep, leaving room for my brain to possibly pick up on paranormal activity. It starts when I hear a loud whispering in my ear. I always know that I need to get out of this now or I'll be screwed. If I can't snap myself out of it, when I open my eyes, everything looks red. First of all, I do not think you can dream in color. I would beg to differ, because I have many, many dreams in color. I don't usually remember my dreams, but most of them are in color. But maybe I'm projecting too, I don't know. I make a point to try to look around the room and see if things will look the same when I'm finished with the experience. If my blinds are up or down, the clock to see the time. I try to escape the experience by trying to sit up, but I cannot move. I feel like there's something right behind me staring at me while I'm being paralyzed. I try to scream, and all I can seem to do is make a faint whisper. I feel scared, stiff. Sometimes I can hear screams or phrases being repeated over and over, such as, "I'm back," or an evil laughing. Most of the time I just hear a loud breathing. In one of these experiences, I remember looking at the clock and seeing that it was 3:02 a.m. When the experience was over, it was 3:05. So I know at least my eyes were open. Usually after about a minute, I gather enough strength to force myself to move, and I'll jump up out of this. I've learned that if I go right back to sleep, I fall right back into the same experience. Me too. I found that very same thing out. So normally I turn on a light and keep myself awake for 5 to 10 minutes, and usually this helps. There was one time in particular where I could not fight my way out of this, and after what seemed to be a long period of time, I started to hear a name come to me. I ended up typing it on my computer, but it was strange. The entire thing is fuzzy, and I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't remember until later that day, and the memory of it was very faint. I tried looking for it, but I couldn't find it. I remember it was a strange name, and for some reason, I think it started with an M. Another fact that adds to my argument against it being sleep paralysis is that I go to college in Massachusetts and I live in Pennsylvania. I only get these dreams when I'm in my room in Pennsylvania, when my blind is open and there's no light on in the room. I've never had this experience at school, but every time I come home, it happens, and it happens more than once. If this was something that just happened to me because of medical or scientific reasons, wouldn't this happen to me anywhere that I slept? That's a good point. It all just seems too real, and I'm very fascinated by the paranormal. And I truly believe, after this has happened to me, the fact that this is just a dream doesn't make any sense. No, I agree. It always felt like something was doing this. It didn't feel like just being stuck in a the idea of sleep paralysis is that apparently when we sleep, our brain excretes a chemical that disconnects our body from our mind. Otherwise, you may run out of bed and go run into traffic or something. It's just if we couldn't cognitionally control our bodies, but we're being controlled by the dream, then so that's why this happens. And so the idea, as I understand it, and I may be really, really bastardizing this, but as I understand it, it's just that point of coming out of the sleep state, but the body isn't quite rid itself of this chemical, and so you're still in the stuck state, even though your mind's up. And I understand that there may be grounds for that in a scientific basis, but so many people report seeing entities, seeing presences, feeling presence, hearing things. Could that still be a remnant of the dream? I guess. But I don't know of anybody that suffered from this that actually thinks it's just a quirk of psychology. I mean, it really feels like there's somebody there doing this. I don't know. Just my opinion, but, whatever that's worth. Next, we're going to Illinois. It was the middle of the night, 3 a.m., and I'm not sure why I woke. I turned on the TV to just pass the time, and suddenly I just got a headache and felt sick to my stomach. I ran to the bathroom to get sick, and I just wanted to lay down and sleep at that point, so I turned off the TV and went back to bed. And as I was on the verge of sleep, I heard a low-level frequency sound in my left ear, followed by a whisper. I opened my eyes, and above me, I saw a shadow. The shadow began to attack me, and it came after my head and chest area, and each time it hit, it would resound throughout my entire body. I began to shake like I was having a seizure, and I turned my head to try to yell for my daughter, who was sleeping in the next room, but no matter how hard I tried, I could not produce any sound. I tried to tell it to go away, but nothing would come out. And finally, it left. The whole thing happened within a couple of minutes. This has never happened to me before, and I live in a new house. I was more freaked out than anything, and have since taken a few precautions and have a couple of prayers that were recommended to me to say nightly, Psalms 71 and 91. And it has been 4 nights since the attack, and hopefully it is over now. But the help that I seek advised that the entity is probably just waiting for me to let my guard down. I'll pray that's not the case. I really felt like it was trying to get inside of my body. Just wanted to get my story out. Thanks. That's creepy. Now there is the whole concept of walk-ins, and I personally know. Here's a story, and I've shared this on the show a long time ago. But what had happened was my cousin was in town visiting a couple years ago, and it was around Thanksgiving time, and they were here, and her and her boyfriend came in to visit, and they stayed with us for a night as they traveled through. And we were sitting around talking, and she was telling me the story of a really weird thing that had happened. And she said that she had gone to she had this friend that was in a terrible accident. This friend was in a coma for a while, but did recover. But she said she went to a psychic, And after that, the psychic said, your friend is trying to say goodbye. And she's like, what? And she explained, the psychic explained to her essentially that this friend, and the psychic described the friend, and my cousin knew it was the guy who had gotten in a terrible accident and was in a coma, that he wanted to thank her for her friendship and time while he was here, and wanted her, to do well and have a wonderful life and that kind of thing. And she's like, I don't understand it, because he came out of the coma, and and I said to her, and she said it was strange, because after the coma, he was different. He was a kind of different person. And I said, are you sure he came back? And she just looked at me, and all of a sudden her eyes got wide. She said, oh my God. And then she went on to explain to me that not only had the guy woken up, his behaviors completely changed. He cut off all relationships and just moved away and didn't reach out to any of the friends. He just kind of cut everybody off and disappeared. So somebody came back, but I don't believe it was her friend. I think her friend did pass away, but some being, some entity, some spirit found an opportunity to come back through that body and live again. So I don't know whatever happened to that person. She didn't know. She had lost touch with them, but she was like, oh my God, that makes sense. So those kind of things can happen. They can happen. Very strange, but I don't know. There's always that risk. All right. So the next one's coming from Michigan. That's funny, because the cousin that I was telling the story about was from Michigan, lives in Colorado now, but from Michigan. And I paraphrased that story. I might have beat it up a little bit, but the essence of the story is in what I said. That's true. But I don't know if I got all the facts exactly right, but I'm pretty sure it was a car accident. I know there was a coma, and the person did come out but changed completely. And we did talk about it being not the friend that came back. So anyway, let's go to Michigan and see what's going on here. It says, I'm a freshman at Eastern Michigan University, which is only about an hour or less away from Detroit. And my roommate and I live in a freshman dorm, and I'm not sure how old it is in comparison to the others, but it's definitely not a new building. And I never really thought about anything about it, but I moved in first and lived by myself for at least a week back in August, and nothing strange or unusual happened. I never heard any strange noises or discovered cold spots, nor did I feel uncomfortable. In fact, I absolutely loved living there. A month or so after school started, my puppy died. My parents took me home so I could say goodbye before we took her body to the vet. And I took her collar with me to college and clasped it around my bed, and we have a bunk beds, and honestly, I was so upset that I had a hard time making it to classes and spent most of my day sleeping. Eventually, I wasn't so emotional, but that's when things started to change. It all started on a cold November morning, and I had slept until about 10 a.m. To check my email, I closed out of everything and looked locked the door. My roommate was currently at classes, and she wouldn't have returned until about 1 p.m. So I set my sweatpants on top of my laptop, but took the rest of my clothes with me, and there wasn't a fan in our bathroom, and the curtain doesn't keep water out very well. However, I came back into my room. I noticed that my pants weren't where I had put them. They'd been folded neatly and placed underneath my desk. I found this to be odd, but again, I didn't think much of it, and the door had been locked. No one had come in. We didn't have any suite mates. I simply assumed that maybe they had fallen off and coincidentally landed under my desk folded neatly. But what was more strange was that Google had been up and someone had searched SI4U. I was slightly creeped out at this point, but the results were in different languages, and I didn't see anything particularly eerie about them. When my roommate returned, I told her what had happened, and she searched SI4U as well, and she got the same results back. We decided that maybe my sweatpants had just fallen off, but sweatpants can't double-click the icon for Firefox go to Google and then search for SI4U before promptly jumping off the desk to the floor. Shortly after this, I lost internet connection, which is typical, but that particular page worked. We were creeped out by this, so I closed it, and nothing happened for a while. Later on that month, just before Thanksgiving break, I was once again alone in my room. My roommate had already left to go home earlier that day, and my dad wasn't going to pick me up until the next morning. I was trying to finish up some homework so that I wouldn't have to worry about it over break, when suddenly I started to hear music. The music sounded as if it was coming from a radio, but it was soft, and at first I couldn't tell if my roommate's radio alarm clock or what. But then it became loud, and it was loud, and it was coming from my roommate's alarm clock. Who Knew by Pink. I went over to the dresser to turn off her alarm clock, but the switch was already on off. My next idea was to unplug it, but one soft tug and the plug was in my hand. My roommate had unplugged it before she left. I thought that maybe there was something wrong with the switch, so I turned it on in hopes that maybe it would shut off, but instead, the music became so loud it was stinging my ears. I took the battery out and it stopped. The next day, I told my roommate not to be surprised if she finds that battery to her alarm clock is lying on her dresser, and I told her that it went off. I was studying, and that was the only thing that would make it stop. I assumed that something might have fired wrong on, or there was a mishap, but then she said, "That's strange. The battery isn't strong enough to power the radio, just the alarm." I thought the radio was broken because it wouldn't turn on unless I had the entire thing plugged into the wall. Boom, boom, boom. Well, them darn clock radios. I don't know. I don't think a radio really draws that much juice that a battery shouldn't be able to power it, but I don't know. Different story. I don't know what SI4U is. That's weird. No answers there, ladies and gentlemen. Just curiosity. All right. Nobody's calling in, but you can call in if you want. 720-923-0500. Somebody just dozed off. Oh, you're so tired. Am I soothing you to sleep? I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not. I've been told that many times. Your voice is so soothing. It's like, I do a paranormal show. I don't want people falling asleep. But I hope that's a good thing. I don't know. All right. So from Massachusetts is next. It's a compliment. Oh, thanks. But I'll try to talk more abrasive, maybe. Oh, well, then get your sleep. If you don't get much sleep, go ahead. Go ahead. This is bedtime stories after all. And if you fall asleep before the stories are over, that's what it's for. All right, so Massachusetts. Massachusetts is next. I was 9-year-old and we were excited to move into our new home. I finally had my own room, and it was only a few months before the excitement became an excitement of different sorts. Our family of 5 went to the circus together, leaving no one at home at all that day. We returned to find a round light fixture that usually hung at the bottom of the stairs on the floor, upside down, over in the corner below. It was in perfect condition and actually had 2 out of 3 of the screws that bolted it in place underneath it. The 3rd screw was still in the ceiling. My parents discussed who had the key to the house, and my mom was the only one. My mom's mother was the only one. They called her to ask if she'd been in the house that day, and she had not. They confirmed with her that she knew nothing of the mysterious placed light fixture. I think we all kept it in our minds and kept our eyes open, and I remember I was excited at the idea of the paranormal, even at that young age. It didn't take long for my curiosity to be intrigued yet again. My brother's birthday was September of 1982, that same year. We had family over for cake, and all of us children were playing upstairs. My brothers and male cousin in my brother's bedroom, the girls and I in mine. And we were called downstairs for cake, and when we returned upstairs, my brothers could not get back into their bedroom. They had called our parents, and the adults came upstairs to see why the door would not open, to discover that the bureau that usually sat against the wall on the left of the door was in fact in front of the door, right up against the door that opened to the room. Thinking there had to be an explanation, my father and uncle muscled the door open. We checked the windows, and they were shut and locked. We looked under the beds, and there was no one. Did a head count, and everyone was accounted for. They didn't have a bedroom closet to hide in, yet another mystery. Things calmed down for a while. We had, of course, told our friends our ghost stories with pride, and there were friends who slept over and said the eyes in my mother's wedding picture over the mantel turned red. And we had seances with friends and kids from the neighborhood where we would rig baseball trophies to fall and basically play jokes on the kids. The spirit or spirits of our house may have been quietly watching, but they were not gone. It was a few years later when my brother told me that he had been listening to music in his room and heard someone call his name from the bottom of the stairs. He had turned the music down and looked down the stairs to see a white floaty thing at the bottom of the stairs. Quite frankly, I didn't believe him. I thought he had been tired and had tired eyes or something, but part of me, wait a minute, tired eyes or something, there we are. Maybe a few months later, I'd been home alone in my room listening to music when I heard my name being called from down the stairs. I lowered my music and looked outside my room a few times and saw nothing. Finally, I answered again, convinced I had heard something, and I also saw the white floaty thing at the bottom of the stairs. Part of me felt and still would feel like I would be interested in interaction with the unknown and communicating with this white floating object, but when actually faced with this as a teenager, I backed into my room and shut the door and sat on my bed with the radio down low, staring at my locked bedroom door. I continued to be intrigued by communication and existence of the life beyond. My friend who had a Ouija board had convinced me to try it. We had made contact with what we believed to be a spirit, and we spoke with him often throughout our high school years. One of my younger brothers decided to use the Ouija board with his friends, and it became old hat to me, so I was not part of the conversation. What I can attest to is that the outcome was from that communication. My brother and his friends had approached me after hours with the Ouija board and told me that the Ouija board claimed to be a boy who had died in our house. The spirit could prove this because his body was buried under the fourth floorboard back from the front of the house. My brother was looking for permission from me to rip up the corner of the carpet in his room and look under a floorboard. Our mother was not at home, and this somehow left me in charge of such a decision. I basically told him that I would not tell him it was okay, but if he did it, I'd like to be there. Nice. They peeled up the carpet in the corner. Nothing. There was a space behind the slanted roof and straight walls that was empty and not accessible to walk in or even crawl in. And they had suggested we put a hole in this wall to see what may or may not have been in that space. Again, I refused to okay this, but subtly encouraged it. We put a hole in the wall and looked in with a flashlight and saw a white material on the floor. We got it out, and it turned out to be 2 boys-sized T-shirts. And I believe my brothers took the T-shirts to the cemetery and buried them in a shirt box. Nothing occurred in the house after that, and we were not able to make contact with any spirits with the Ouija board after that day. Well, I don't know. A spirit could be attached to a shirt, I guess. Weird, though. Yeah. Everybody has a friend that introduces the Ouija board. Way to go, friend. Exactly. I don't advocate it too much unless you really know what you're doing, and never for kids. I don't understand. I don't understand the whole Ouija board for kids thing. Did I do it as a kid? I think I did when I was really young, but nothing happened. But it was really creepy. It just felt creepy. I didn't like it. I did as a 20 something year old person too, but allegedly made contact with something, but I don't know. It was a long time ago, and I was probably under the influence of a lot of things at that time. Just saying, that was a long time ago. So Missouri is next. And hey guys, it's me. I told you that I'd be back with another fantastic dorm haunting story. And I'm not saying that I am sensitive to spirits, but I feel like for being at my school for only a year and a half, 2 encounters in 2 different bathrooms is amazing to me. If you didn't read my last story, I go to college in southern Missouri. It's a pretty old school. It has been around since 1919, so you can imagine how many students have lived in its dorms over the time. I moved from my last dorm into my new dorm. My current dorm is the oldest of all the dorms and was originally a dorm for only girls. It was a pretty nice dorm, and I felt pretty comfortable there. About 2 months ago, I was washing my face at around midnight in another community bathroom, and when I pulled my face up from the sink, I saw in the reflection of the mirror, the reflection was of the shower stalls, and the last shower stall on the right had a dark shadow-like figure in it. There were no feet, just a very dark shadow, and the light above the shower was blinking off and on rapidly. I was pretty freaked and grabbed my stuff and ran back to my room. My new roommate this semester gets kind of freaked out by things like that, so I didn't tell her. About a week later, my roommate came back to our room, and she went to the bathroom and looked kind of weird, and I asked her if she was okay, and she said, yeah, and I told her that she could talk to me if something was wrong, and I had previously talked to her about my experience in the last dorm, so she already knew about that. And a few minutes later, after we started a movie, I told her about what I had seen a few nights before. I was curious to see if she believed me or if she would laugh, and she looked at me scared and just said, I just saw it. At that point, we were both pretty freaked, and I just talked about both of our experiences, and they were both almost the same. The next day, I went to take a shower, and I used the stall next to the shadow figure one, halfway hoping whatever it was would come back so I could maybe see if it was just a shadow from the curtain or something like that. As I was taking my shower, I realized the light next to my shower began doing the blinking off and on thing that I had done before. I was getting a little nervous, sort of tried to ignore it. You need a key to control the lights in their bathroom, so it's not like anyone could have messed with them. And then all of a sudden, all the lights in the bathroom started flipping on and off and no person had been flipping the lights like that, even if they had a key. I began to rinse off frantically. I turned my water off and opened the curtain, and halfway looked under the creepy stall. The shadow was back. It was darker and bigger than ever. I grabbed all my stuff as fast as I could, and I ran. I was practically crying when I got to my room because it just freaked me out so much, and my roommate realized what I had done. We never told anyone else about it on my floor, but randomly hear girls talking about the shadow in the shower, and we actually hung a sign on the door that says out of order so no one uses it. That is how freaked out a lot of the girls are. On a side note, since my new dorm used to be a girls-only dorm, they used to have what you call, I guess, a floor mother. And she used to go up and down the halls and check to see if there were any boys in the rooms after a certain time and make sure doors were locked in the middle of the night. So now when there are boys in girls' rooms, some people have reported a banging on their doors and no one will be there at all, not even in the hall. And I've witnessed several times in the middle of the night someone slamming down on the outside of my door handle as if they were making sure it was locked. Sort of freaky. That is sort of freaky. That's all kinds of freaky. Yeah, I imagine there's some of those spirits probably continue just doing what they did in life because that's what they did. I don't know. Very weird. Wild and wacky stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Wild and wacky stuff. All right, New York is next. I wrote other stories about my brother Jay, but I didn't tell this one. It was the late afternoon, about 4:58. So I guess it's pretty precise. It could have just said about 5. And I was slowly observing the pictures of my brother, and I could have swore I saw one moving. Every time I rubbed my eyes and blinked, I could still see the mouth moving and words coming out. His eyes moved, and his mouth broke into a smile. I don't think it was my imagination because it repeatedly happened. It's like, was he was he reading the Daily Prophet or something? I was freaked out. In my mind, I said, is this for real or is it just me? And I can still remember what it was saying. It said, "Hi, Daniel, do you remember me?" I almost burst into tears. I was happy yet sad. It was really my brother. After all these years, he let me see him. He looked like a nice boy, and I'm very sad that he got leukemia, bone cancer, and I thought to myself, I will treasure this moment forever. I wonder what it would be like if Jay was still alive. He'd be 25 years old, and he probably would grow up to be a very successful man. I hope to be what my brother could have been. In my dreams, I picture that moment, and I don't think I will ever forget what happened to me on that day. I just hope that God is taking care of him on this very moment. I also hope that Jay is watching down over me right now. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please comment and tell me what I should do to stop being so afraid. Well, if it's your brother and he loves you and it was a beautiful moment, then I guess you can trust that. That's my 2 cents. How long are we into this now? 52 minutes. I guess we got time for maybe one more. What do you guys think? You want one more? One more story? One more for the road? Oh, this one sounds kind of tragic. These are the tough ones. This one's coming from New York again. It's not too long. Hello, people. I read a couple of other people's stories, and I felt that I had to tell my experience. Ever since I was younger, all I ever heard of is spiritual happenings and whatnot, and I guess it helps to tell you that my parents and grandparents are from the Caribbean. Or Caribbean. I'm not sure which way is the right way to say that. Caribbean or Caribbean. My mom, my brothers, and I recently moved to a new apartment last Christmas Eve, and I was really excited to have my own room again after more than 10 years. So after I got used to slamming my new bedroom door after a couple of days, I left it open one night because it was unbearably hot and the windows weren't helping. Now, my room just happened to be across from the bathroom, not really the best thing in the world. My mom's is on the right of my room, and my little brother's is next to hers, and the bathroom. Keep this in mind. So being as I have problems with sleeping, I was watching TV while laying in my bed, and I happened to see a small boy walking back and forth past my door. I yelled at him, thinking it was one of the knuckleheads playing a stupid joke, thinking they were being stealthy, but he didn't answer. So I stick my head out of the doorway and I see the figure walk into their room. I follow it to go beat them up, but they were both asleep with the TV on. I turned it off and left. Back in my room, I'm watching the TV again, and I closed the bathroom door so the light wouldn't bother the others while they slept, and I reach for my remote, and it isn't where I put it, which happened to be right next to me. So I go around the house looking for it, thinking I'm going crazy, and when I decide to stop, it's back in the same spot. Now, this isn't the first time that's happened. I tracked his movements, and he only travels in my brother's bedroom, my room, and the hallway, and in between them. I figure he was someone's little brother who lived here before. My baby brother has seen him before as well, saying he thought it was me playing tricks on him because I always do, but he noticed that I didn't make any noise, so he knew it wasn't me. I wish I could figure out who lived here before, but I can't because no one lived in the building long enough, and some of the neighbors just happen to be obnoxious. I've not had that experience. That's pretty wild. But ladies and gentlemen, I guess that's going to wrap up our show for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a wonderful journey into the paranormal. Good to see you, Ken. Bigfoot in Germany. And good to see you stayed awake, OCG. Now you can go to sleep. I got to record another show right after this for Sunday. But I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. I won't be back tomorrow night, but Don will be. He'll be doing the portal for the next 2 nights. And I hope you guys will be here and help support him. No, sorry, guys. It's been about an hour. I got another night, another show to do, and I got to upload another podcast and get this all ready so I can hit the hay to hit the road tomorrow. So I do love you guys. I'd stay here longer if I could, but it's just I can only do so much. But I hope you guys have a great night. Take care of everybody, and sweet dreams.